So Dave, what means this conference for you, for your organization, and what this means having this conference here in Chile this year?
Well, I think this is, I work with ActionAid in the Global Secretariat. I think this is an incredibly unprecedented opportunity to bring together the movements we've been working on different public services, everything from education, health, water, transport, energy, care, housing. It's just a beautiful moment for all of those campaigns who are defending public services and challenging privatisation to come together and then to explore with activists from sort of cross-cutting movements on economic justice, climate justice, democratic participation and gender and care, and to really start building a sort of a wider interconnection between those movements. Because frankly speaking, we're never going to win a victory against privatisation in one sector if every other sector is being privatised. And we're not going to make a sort of structural shift if we're all fighting for a greater share of the national budget for education, for health or for water. We've actually got to start looking at the structural picture and look at, well, how do we increase financing for all public services and shift the dial on the narrative of public services, especially in the light of the climate crisis, thinking about, what is the role of public services in a future in building a more resilient and fair and more equal state. And I think the opportunities to come together here in Chile, which was the birthplace of neoliberalism, and where Gabriel Boric has said this should be where neoliberalism is also put in the grave. It's just a beautiful, unprecedented opportunity. One of the key things, I think, is focusing on the sort of big picture of what are the obstacles to increasing financing on all public services, and that is, in one way or another, about tax justice, and moving away from a situation where low-income countries have got, 16% tax to GDP ratio. That's got to be ratcheted up, and it's got to be ratcheted up through progressive tax reforms. How can we deal with the chronic debt crisis, which means so many countries are spending more on debt servicing than they are on education and health combined? And how can we actually push back against the domination of this whole the whole framing of public services by the IMF in its dialogue with ministries of finance, which by default every time talk about the need to cut spending on public services and cut spending particularly on the public sector wage bill. We've got to change that narrative, and this, I think, unprecedented gathering is an incredibly exciting moment to do that. I hope we'll lay the foundation, build the sort of foundations for what will be a much longer process of shifting the narrative on public services, thinking about what is the core argument for public services over the next decade. It's just incredibly exciting to be here, and I'm looking forward to what should be a wonderful 4 days of discussions.